might not have heard so much, those who might not have who don't know so much about the agency and how relevant your informations or your education are to the work in agriculture sector. Mrs. Martey, if you can hear me, please take it from here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I can start from here. The other one I pulled out, so I don't want to waste our time again. So GMET has forecasts that we do, different kind of forecasts and different kind of products. And so like what I've opened, we have time scales for forecasts. Please, can you hear me?
Yes,
can
please.
people hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So we have time scales. We have what we call the nowcast, which is daily, short range weather warnings. And then we have the long range forecasting, which is the sub-seasonal, monthly, 3-monthly, and climate projection. So this is some of the short-term forecasts that we have. So in a day, we have 3 times of forecasts. We have 3 different types. We have in the morning, which comes out at 5 a.m. Then we have in the afternoon, which comes out at 11 a.m. And then we have in the evening, which comes off at 5 p.m. Latest by 6 p.m. it is out. And on any of the forecasts, we have 3 types of different time scales. We have the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. So if you look at my left-hand side, I have the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. And this forecast is called impact-based forecast. So we have the impact that it will have, and then the likelihood. They are down there in the tables. And then we have at 11, we update. So you see that when we have any new systems approaching, or any new maybe we update the morning one. And you can see that that one starts from afternoon, evening, and then we update the morning one. Then in the evening at 5 p.m., we update again. So you see that the one at my right-hand side has the evening, the morning, and tomorrow in the afternoon. And all these data comes within a day. All these products come within a day. So we give out to the public. Just in case within the system, there is an approaching storm, which we realize because sometimes storm can develop within the day. And so that will bring about a weather warning. When the weather warning comes, also we give it to the public. So we have the short radar, the weather warning, and then the daily forecast. So, and then the daily forecast, apart from the maps that we give, that is what we call the impact-based forecast, because you see where especially where we are saying things will happen. And if it is in your area, what is the likelihood that it will happen? And then what is the impact it's going to give you? But some other people also prefer it in the tabular form that is on my left-hand side. So we also give them, and we give the maps. But then what happens is that the maps covers a larger area. But with the table, it's just a station by station. So you might not get where you are. So these are still examples when we were having the Harmattan and Co. Then we have on my right-hand side, that's the weekly forecast. So the weekly forecast, we also do on Monday and update on Wednesday and Fridays. And so we give it out to find out how the following week will give or will look like. And then we expect people to also follow it. On my left-hand side, you see example of the weather warning that is approaching. And the weather warning, we give its time and impact, and then areas that it will affect. So we come to the long-range forecast. The long-range forecast deals with a month, and then a season, and then projection, 30 years. We are now working on the 30 years. And within that, it's within the applied meteorology side of the organization. And so in that, we have the seasonal forecast. And the seasonal forecast deals with the start of the rains the dry spell, the cessation, and then etc. Then we have the cumulative rainfall forecast. Before the projections, we have the profiling and we have the anomalies. So the seasonal forecast, we have 3 types in a year. We have the March, April, May, we just outdoored, and then we have the May, June, July, August for the north. Because as we speak now, the season for the north has not started, but it will start within May, June, July. So we have started preparing the forecast for it. Then we descend down for the minor season for the south. So we have 3 major forecasts for the country, and this is how it comes. Then we have it as probabilities for the scientists, and so we find out how sure are we, or how we expect the rainfall to be, and in that we apply probabilities. Those who cannot, who might not understand our probability, our science probability, this is how we do it for them. So this is just an example, the cessation, what time span. And we have looked into the data, we have done research, and we tell them, this is what happens within your area, and this is the forecasted cessation periods that we do. We do some bulletins which gives us how evolutions of how the system has gone, and that is 10 days, 10 days.
Okay. This is a very detailed insight.
It's very detailed.
Yes.
These are some of the anomalies, the rainfall trends that goes. So apart from that, let me just now speak, and then we go on. We do marine and ocean forecast for the fisher folks. We do them for them, and that's also daily weather warnings for them, for the fishermen, and also we do aeronautical forecasting for people who are traveling, like me and you who always travel. We do aeronautical forecast. We do terminal aerodrome forecast for them, and a lot of it. So these are just a little that I can bring across.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Martey, for that insightful but very detailed introduction about your agency and what you do in terms of the forecast. Before you delve into your presentation, let me quickly also ask Dr. Stephen Yeboah to once again tell us briefly about CSRI, what you do in Ghana, and what role you play to help farmers in their season. I mean, when the season begins, how you come in to help us as well.
Thank you, moderator. So good evening to all participants. So CSR is a Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Is the famous scientific and technological organization, public sector organization in Ghana. And then it has 13 institutions who are mandated to do different things. So for me, I work with CSR, one of the institutions called Crops Research Institute.
Okay.
So normally we will say CSIR-Crops Research Institute, and it is based in Kumasi with about 8 outstations. Basically, as the name indicates, what we do is to develop, it's a research organization. So our mandate is to develop technologies, innovations that are demand-driven, aim at addressing issues around agriculture, issues around food security, and issues around environmental health. So if I put it in that broad thematic area. So if I come down, for example, if we say technology, when we talk about crops varieties that we grow in the country, majority of the seed was developed by CSR Crop Research Institute. We, CSR and then another sister institution are the only nationally mandated agriculture institutions that are responsible for developing varieties of crops for farmers and for the industry. Besides that, we also develop technologies that accompany the use of these crops. We are engaged in commercialization. We are engaged in capacity building. We also have a postgraduate school that we train people at master's and PhD level on the agricultural land use and food security. So in brief, this is what I will say.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'll come back to you on that. But before I come to Mrs. Martey to proceed with her presentation, farmers rely on climate patterns and weather forecasting in agriculture to determine which crops to cultivate and at what time we have to cultivate that. That is how we actually went about deciding on the subject matter to enlighten both farmers, extension officers, agric enthusiasts, agric journalists, so we can know and prepare ahead of time. And that's why this discussion is tailored, or it is focusing around leveraging climate information for improved productivity. So Mrs. Martey, if you do us the honors to please help us with the presentation. I can see on the screen here, seasonal forecast of agro-hydroclimate characteristic for the Gulf of Guinea countries. So if you are ready, then we can now take your presentation, and then we'll follow up with some questions and equally invite our online audience to equally join and ask a couple of questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Madam Moderator. The topic you are seeing okay, so the seasonal forecast for agro-hydroclimatic characteristics for the Gulf of Guinea countries for the year 2024. What the reason the reason for this topic, the title of this presentation is that in forecasting, you know, weather doesn't have, it's not limited to boundaries, but they have it occurs in zones. So in zone, normally the major season for the South starts within 6 countries, and it starts from 8 degrees north and below. So in doing that, we meet as these countries, and then we do the forecast. And we are sure that we show what we want to, what we see from the models we run as a region. And then we come down and downscale it to our countries. And so in this year, within this season, Ghana was privileged to host the neighboring countries for the Gulf of Guinea forecast. And so that is why this name. And we do it together with our colleagues from the Hydrological Authority, now the Hydrological Authority. So they would also forecast the rivers, the flows, and the basins. So that is why the impulse of this name. So in the forecast, we have the onset of the season, that's the start of the season. And as I said, it starts the major season for the south of Ghana. And how is the season going to be? Then we have the amount of rainfall for the season, March, April, May, June. We have the dry spells, and then we have the cessation of the rains, and then I might chip in the hydrological forecast, and maybe if need be, the advisories. So with the onset of the rains, what happened is that after running our models, we saw that for the right-hand side, the probabilities, we saw that we are expecting, and you can see that the yellow is from the middle of the country, and that is the 8 degrees north and below. That's where the major season would occur for the south. So we saw that we have a yellow part and a gray part. And when we look at the legend, we have a green, gray, and then yellow. And the green is showing that we're expecting an early onset, and then the gray is the normal, and then the late. So we find that for almost the whole part of the south, we are expecting, when you look at the yellow one, a late onset. A late onset to a normal onset, the gray one. And then for the east coast of the country, we are expecting normal onsets for them. And with that, We have now brought it to the left-hand side. We have brought it to what actually happens, so that we call that the deterministic forecast. So people will look at it, the ordinary people on the street will now see the dates that we are giving, give meaning to the yellow one. So when you look at the zones, the East Coast, the normal starting of the rains or onset of the rains is first week of March to the third week of March. It is like that because when it starts from the Aflau, Keta, and all those things, all the way to Accra, Cape Coast, and all those things, it is a bit wide. So we give a range, we cannot give a value. And we said that from our forecast, we're expecting that people in this area, their rains will begin from the third week of March to the third week of April. And then for the West Coast, the data shows us that they normally have their rains within the first week of March to the fourth week of March. And the expectation we have is that they will have their rainfall from the second week of March to the first week of April. And the forest zone, the first week of March to the first week of April, that's their normal season. And then the forecast is first week of March to first week of April. And then the transition zone, which is partly between the forest zone and the northern sector, we're expecting to have fourth week of March to third week of April. Then when we come to the cumulative rainfall amount for March, April, May, and what happens in the seasonal forecast, the longer you go away from the target, the less accurate it becomes. So we normally give a window of a month. So we do it 3 monthly, a window of a month, so that they'll be near each other. So the accuracy level will be a bit higher. So when we look at the cumulative rainfall, we see that the gray also is a normal or the average rainfall. And then the gold is a below normal rainfall. And the green is an above normal rainfall. We are saying that for the East Coast, again, we're expecting an above rainfall to a normal rainfall. And then the rest of the country are expecting a normal rainfall for the south of the country. Then we brought it into the deterministic, which is what all of us would understand better. So we are saying that whatever is 8 degrees and below, we are sure that we'll have a normal rainfall, 45% sure that we'll have a normal rainfall. So the long-term mean, or the average, or the normal is the middle one. And we are saying the East Coast, normally within March, April, May, they have 270 millimeters to 420 millimeters. And we are forecasting 283 millimeters to 430 millimeters. And that is why you are finding the above average rainfall there. West Coast, they normally have 348 to 606. We are expecting 207 to 619. Then the forest zone, we are expecting, they have 273 to 576. We are expecting 314 to 534. The transition, 192 to 443. Then the expected rainfall amount is 284 to 448. In the north, the rainfall has not started. It does not mean that it does not rain, but it will not be able to support any activity, any relevant activity.
Okay. Mrs. Martey, before you proceed, you were mentioning East Coast and West Coast. Can you mention some of the regions around these belts that you were mentioning, please?
So when I said the East Coast, I was saying, if you remember, I said from Aflau all the way to Cape Coast.
Right.
And then from beyond Cape Coast all the way to Hafasini. Because we found that these places have the same rainfall characteristics. So we zone them like that.
Yes, please.
Okay. Then this is April, May, June, cumulative rainfall amount for April, May, June. Within the April, May, June, the rainfall has now established. The March, April, May, it has now begun, and it is trying to find its feet, let me put it like that. But within April, May, June, it has now established, and people are now using it for their activities. And that is the same place where we have sometimes within the marshy areas or places where it is densely populated and we don't take good care, we have them flooding. So within March, April, May, we are still expecting that the East Coast and in between somewhere into the forest zone, we are still expecting an above average rainfall. But the West Coast is showing that within that period, it will have a normal to below normal rainfall amounts. The rest of the south of the country, we expect normal rains. That's the green, the gray. But the gold one, we're expecting below normal rains. Then when we come to our GIS plot, we can see that the values are there. Half-Assini, those are the West Coast, Takoradi, Axim, Half-Assini. We are expecting 533 millimeters, 2,045. And what we normally get is 462 to 1,053. The East Coast, we're expecting 491 to 578. And then the West Coast, the expected value is 346 to 480. I must also explain that if I say somewhere the place is going to get below average rainfall, it does not mean that it's going to be drought. Okay. You see that Axim and Half-Assini, they have the highest of 1,053. Imagine 1,053 millimeters of rain enters Accra. You see, so we can say that that place we are expecting below average rainfall, but it's below average rainfall is 1,045 millimeters of rain. Right? Can you imagine that? I know. So when we are saying below average and above or normal, it depends on the place. Okay. That we are talking of. The forest zone, we are saying that we expect them to get 387 to 603. And then the transition 425 to 479. Within that time, the northern region, the rain has started. But then it has not begun, it has not reached established rainfall amount. So we expect that they will pick up within the transition 425 to 479, the north 237 to 457, upper east 252 to 324, upper west 247 to 395. Okay. Wow. First dry spell. If you're a farmer, this should be of utmost importance to you, the dry spell. My interest. So the dry spell is the break between the rainfall activity. So the rainfall will come like today. When is the next one coming? Right. And for the farmer, the dry spells are the first day to the 50th day that your crop will flower. So if the rain is not consistent, evenly distributed, your product will suffer. They might not, they might suffer stunted growth or something. And then if it is more than it, maybe Dr. Yeboah can explain that. Right. Again, from the second dry spell like this one, it is the 51st day to the end of the season. And that is where our crop will turn from flowering to crop to food. So at that place too, if we don't get the expected rainfall amount to feed into it well, to turn into crops, the flowers will fall down. Okay. The flowers will fall off, and then we'll still suffer. So we are saying that the first dry spell, we are expecting a long dry spell. And a long dry spell might not be good for our farmers. So when you come to the East Coast, we are forecasting 11 days. Well, meanwhile, they normally have 9 days. West Coast, 9 days. Normally, they have 7 days. And then the forest zone, 10 days. But we are expecting they have 7 days. And then the transition, 13 days. But they normally have 9 days. So we can see from the GIS map around Kintampo, it will be very long. Kintapo, Bui, and so on, it will be very long. And then we are expecting some normal rainfall, like 8 days dry spell within the Axim area, Takwa, Seshibekwa, and so on, Akachi, Pando, and so on and so forth. The second dry spell, as I said, the second dry spell, as I said, yes, so that one too, we are expecting a longer dry spell for the rest of the southern zone. And then by the East Coast, we are expecting a normal dry spell, and it goes to the same. So the normal dry spell where for East Coast is 13 days, yet we're expecting 14 to 18 days. And then for the West Coast, 12 days, we're expecting 10 to 14 days. The forest zone, 11 days, we're expecting 10 to 15 days. And the transition zone, 13 days, we're expecting 15 to 19 days. And we are still expecting Cape Coast, Accra, Akachi, no, Akuse, Bui, Wenchi, Prang. Those places are to have longer dry spells. So farmers in these areas are to watch out and do the appropriate farming practices so that evapotranspiration will be limited.
Okay.
Yes. Then after this, we go to the cessation of the rains. Well, how is it going to be like? And we are expecting early cessation for the south of the country. So for early cessation, the East Coast, the average is first week of July to third week of July, but we are expecting it to be first week of July to second week of July. Then the West Coast, second week of July to first week of August. Then we're expecting second week of July to fourth week of July. Then the forest zone, second week of July to first week of August. And then we are expecting second week of July to fourth week of July. Then transition zone, fourth week of July to second week of August. Then we are expecting third week of July to second week of August. Then, sorry, but for those in the river basins and things, we are expecting that we would have a below normal flow within the Tano and the Akobra basins, and then a normal flow around the Pra and the Densu. The Volta Lake takes its tributary, rainfall from the catchment areas from the black and white water. So when we do the forecast for the north, we'll be able to talk about the Volta Lake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mom, for that detailed presentation. A lot of warnings for farmers, and I'm very happy that I've seen a couple of agric officers online. They should be great help to the farmers. I'm moving on to Dr. Yeboah. Dr. Yeboah, from what Mrs. Martey has presented to us, you are in the area of the crops. As farmers who are gearing up and getting ready, a lot of the farmers are rainfall farmers or rain-fed farmers. What should we do ahead of all these informations available to us? What are some of the things we need to put in place? How do we go about the season, please?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So if I should summarize Madam Francisca's presentation to put us in context, what he's saying is that the southern part of Ghana is where they are forecasted for now. And then generally for the southern part of Ghana, there will be late onset. And at the same time, there will be early cessation. So these are two critical things. What he's saying is that the expected start of the rains will delay.
Okay.
But it will also end early. So that is the summary. The rains will start, the expected date that we normally envisage that the rain will start will be late. However, it's likely going to end early. So what it implies is that we are going to have a shorter growing season. So that's the implication. What it means is that
Right, yes.
The growing period for the crops is going to be shorter. Because if your rains is not starting early and it is ending early, it's forecast to end early. It means that the period within which you can undertake your cropping or agriculture-related activities that depends on rain is going to be short. So that would be the interpretation. Then the other aspect she presented, which is also very informative, is the fact that in between even the growing season, which has been shortened by the forecast, there are going to be stoppages of rains. And those periods that is not going to rain within the cropping season is going to be elongated, is going to be long. So, and there are going to be two incidences of that. You are going to have first dry spell, which means that the first cessation and that period is also going to be long, more than 10 days. And then another one is also going to happen, which even is coinciding with the critical growth stages of our crops, normally flowering, and that is also going to be long. So this is the scenario. So this is the whole picture. If you are in agriculture research or agriculture development work, you just have to summarize this on your table and then develop your interventions around this summary.
Okay, Doc, a follow-up question before I move to Mrs. Martey. In that case, crop research, how are you helping farmers to adjust themselves, looking at how the season is going to be, late start, but it will stop early as well? A lot of people produce vegetables in the country, and a lot of us also rely on the rainfall. I do potatoes, and I'm relying on the rains. I'm waiting actually for the rains to come. So in this case, for the smallholder farmer who is not working or using irrigation, crop research, how should we handle our work on the field? What do we do? How do we make sure that we get something out of the investment? Because from what you're saying, it's very scary. That's how you work.
Yeah, so that is why I'm very fascinated about the work by Ghana Meteorological Agency.
Yes, Mrs. Martey.
If I should mention, even today, late this afternoon, I attended a last forum for my day, and that forum was by UK Center for Hydrology and Ecology, which has now recently opened an office in Accra. And one of the things that we discussed is what Madam Francisca mentioned, now forecasting, which is one of the ways they do short-term forecast. So this information is very critical because this is where the action must begin. So when you have this kind of information, one of the things that is very critical is that if you are a crop farmer, you need to decide what type of crop to cultivate.
Exactly.
Because you mentioned that you cultivate sweet potato. Okay, the sweet potato have a maturity period. So if you look at the date she gave, in between the period, would your sweet potato be able to grow and mature for you to harvest in between the period? So the first thing you need to decide is the type of crop to grow, because the type of crop to grow relates with maturity periods, so that you have the crop that can grow for you to harvest within the late onset forecast and then the early cessation. That's one thing you need to decide on. Another thing you need to decide on is the type of variety, even the seed to grow. So, for example, if you have decided that, okay, we are going to have 90 days of rain per the forecast, if we do the mathematics, if we take third week of, if we use transition zone as an example, and then the rains, the late onset is third week of April, and then it's going to end early. If we do the calculation and then the number of days is maybe 90 days, and then you want to cultivate maize, then what type of seed do you have to cultivate? Because you have the maize that has different maturity period.
Yes.
You have one that will go for 80 days or 85 days, one that will go for 100 days, the one that will go for 115 days. So then, of course, if you're making the choice, then you are advising the farmer, or you're making a choice as a farmer, not to cultivate a maize seed that will go beyond 90 days, because your rainfall period is within 90 days.
Right.
So now the type of seed becomes also very important. Decide the type of crop that you are going to do. Apart from that, even the seed you have chosen, what are the inherent characteristics of that seed? You see, normally, when we think that anything you put in the soil and germinate is a seed. A seed is different from a grain. Right. A seed is what is used to cultivate to continue the biological process. But a grain has finished its work and is supposed to be used for a product like food, for people to consume or animals to consume. So you decide on the type of seed, the characteristics of the seed. Is it a seed that can resist some amount of drought? So you say you want a drought-tolerant seed, or is it a seed that can resist some amount, or that can tolerate some amount, a type of weed that is expected to come up because of the forecast. And then another critical thing I also mentioned in the summary is a dry spell.
Yes.
So when the dry spell becomes miss the whole calendar, cropping calendar, critical, because you need to grow, you need to decide on the crop, decide on the seed, and decide on the type when you are planting, because you need to plant to coincide with the onset. So assuming that the onset in the transition is 3rd week of March, so you are planting on 23rd week of March, so you are planting on 18th March. Then you must calculate when the first dry spell will happen, because you have between 3rd week of March to 1st April to plant. So in between that period, you have to make a decision to plant within the period so that the most critical stage of your crop will not coincide with the forecast dry spell date. Because if you don't plant at the right time, and then, for example, you are planted maize and you are required to do a basal fertilizer application, and then per the date you planted is going to coincide with the period of the dry spell, the first dry spell. It means that your fertilizer application is going to be hindered. You apply the fertilizer, either the crop will not be able to use the fertilizer, or you will not have moisture in the soil to apply the fertilizer. So you end up maybe applying that fertilizer late of the crop growth period, which also goes to affect the yield. Now you have the second dry spell also coming up. And if it is also a maize, which I'm using as a case study, then you need to do top dressing. So the date now becomes critical. The date that you are putting your seed in the soil becomes critical, so that you are able to satisfy the period that you have to grow your crop, and then the periods of the dry spell. And the way to solve this critical issue is to develop what you call the crop calendar. So, for example, now that we have this information of late onset, early cessation, longer dry spells, both first and second dry spell, you need to, if you are a development officer, extension officer, or agricultural research scientist, you need to develop a cropping calendar using this information for your area. So that when you go to advise farmers, or you go to advise your growers, you will be able to use that crop calendar to guide them as to when they should plant, so that it will not coincide with this longer dry incidences of dry spell, and so and then they can also harvest. So cropping calendar is one of the tools that you can use as an adaptation strategy against some of these climate risks that the forecast is projecting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yeboah. There are some questions for you, but all audience online listening, please, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand and direct a question to either Mrs. Martey or Dr. Yeboah, or you can drop your question through the text column and then I'll read it. Mrs. Martey, there's a question here for you from Kofi Hinako. He says, quite informative, Mrs. Martey. Does GMET distribute data in 1, images, or 2, GIS formats? Hansen Geodata Technologies, and also will like to integrate these into its okay, so he's asking if you have a way you distribute your data.
Well, if he says, I thank him for his question.
Yes.
And then thank Dr. Yeboah for that insight. So
yes.
If he says, do we distribute data? That is where I don't understand
in
whether
images.
it's
I think he wants to understand if there's a way you go about sharing this insightful, the forecast that you just presented.
Oh, the forecast is everywhere. It's on all the social media handle. So it's on WhatsApp, it's Instagram, it's on the Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on our website.
Okay.
It's
all right.
all the social media handles.
Okay. Kofi, so please follow GMET's social media platforms and you see all their updates. Another question for you, Mrs. Martey, before I move to Dr. Yeboah. What role can the media, extension officers, agric influencers, or community leaders play in ensuring that this information you just presented here gets to every corner, every farming community in this country?
Okay, so thank you for the question. When we come out,
yes.
like myself and Dr. Yeboah, we go to the field through the benevolent gestures and support of AICCRA. So we go to the field. One, we deal with the intermediaries, the agric extension officers. Okay. In where we focus, we have trained them to understand the forecast, to understand the Dr. Yeboah's area. And then we have also trained with the GMET platforms and the weather. What we do is that we train the local radio stations.
Okay.
Because they have the power of the mic. So we train them, and then now when the forecast comes, like what we are doing, yes, we give it to the extension officers, the radio stations. They are on our platforms. Then daily they take it across to the farmer. Then the extension officer also work hand in hand with the farmer. And then when we go to the field, which we are about to do, we also go with them as we recap on what we are expecting. We also take them across to the farmers, and then they follow up from there. Okay. So these are some of the things we do so that the forecast is used very well.
Okay. Dr. Yeboah, Faustina wants to know, are there particular pests and disease that we should also anticipate to encounter based on the forecast?
Yeah. So thank you, Beck. I have a colleague on the platform who is our pest and disease expert. He can come in after my submission.
Yes, please.
So Dr. Adamako is on the platform. So we anticipate certain kind of pests and diseases to come up under this kind of scenario. One of them is the 4-army worm. The 4-army worm is a pest that relates with moisture, rainfall amount. So in the case where we have done a lot of research, some of them published also by myself. In the case where you have high incidences of 4-army worm infestation, you realize that it's normally correlate with poor rainfall events. So when we are going to experience a lot of longer dry spells, which means that during those periods, the crop will be on the field, but there will not be rains. It means that incidences of 4-army worm can be higher within those periods. And that is something we need to watch out. And one of the ways we can use to mitigate this kind of situation is, one of them is what we are doing, the early warning. The early warning, which will indicate that there is a possibility of 4-army worm outbreak within this period because of longer dry spells, which will not allow the rains to come. So the pest can flourish. The other one is monitoring. During the period, we will need to monitor our fields to see incidences of this pest so that we can take the necessary intervention. So that is it. It's possible there can be outbreaks like fall armyworm incidences, which is one major pest affecting cereal production in Ghana.
Okay. All right. Dr. Adumako, you want to add a few tips to us? Dr. Yeboah, you said your colleague was going on.
I think Dr. Yeboah have said a lot.
Okay.
So like he said, we have to be on the guard. First is monitoring. I always tell our farmers that your farm and your crops should be your friend. We've taught them how to scout, especially for the armyworm, at which threshold that you need to reach that you have to start intervention. So you have to be on the lookout for some of these things. And even with the sweet potato, because of the long break of the dryness or the break of the rain, you should also anticipate to find weevils, sweet potato weevils emerging. So like some of the technologies we taught them using the onion and neem intercrops and all those things, it can help to reduce the incidence and the severity at which they will be able to work. So yes, this forecast is revealing. And so we all farmers should be on the guard and look out for things. And even when we are harvesting and at a drying period, we should also be looking at how long we are storing them, leaving them on the field, because most of these things can also be from field to storage pest. So how long are we leaving them on our plants on the field? We should all be guided by these things so that we don't carry other pathogens and things from the field to the storage, which may end up contaminating, especially when it comes to these mycotoxins, aflatoxins, and all those things. So you should know how to handle all these things on the field, when to harvest, when to plant. Like Dr. Yeboah said, you should follow the calendar.
All right.
So our IEs will help our farmers to develop this calendar, know when to apply chemicals, know when to plant, know when to do intervention, know when to do all the monitoring, so that they don't end up losing much of their produce. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Mrs. Martey, there's another question here for you from Wolali Senyo. He wants to know, how can we partner to share this information to farmers without smartphone or cannot read English? How does he partner with you?
Okay, well, Anya, thank you so much for this. We have other projects in GMS that we just use the yam foam. But that one, what we just do is that, is it going to rain? Yes, no. You see, that is not too informative. So, but we give it to those, we push the forecast, and then when it's time for seasonal forecast, because they are in groups, we come online, the extension officers come online, and then we train them.
Okay.
Number two, with the intermediaries, because these people might not have the smartphones, that is why we train the intermediaries to go to them with the information. And then the radio stations also, as I said, the rural radio stations that we have trained also go on the mark, they speak their local dialects, and these farmers pick it. There are even sometimes that we have some, especially the mosque, our brothers who are Muslims, they broadcast the forecast before they pray. So they have the elite who broadcast them. So we have various ways where we get it to the farmer who doesn't have the smartphone. And then we are also coming out with WITS, Weather Information Dissemination Systems, which has a voice note. And so we are also building it gradually to get to the people. So these are some of the interventions we do. But if you want us to partner, please, can you visit our office?
Okay.
So that we can go into details, yes.
All right. Wolali, that's for you. Samuel Ofosu I think Doc would have to answer this one. I'm into maize farming at Western North region. Sorry, is that right? Hey, sorry, I have cleared the land. What kind of maize would be productive? Please, Doc. Samuel Ofosu need your help.
Yeah, so Samuel Ofosu will need the first information to decide on the type of maize seed to grow will be this weather information, this climate information we are receiving today. So Francisca generously is giving us this information. So per his area, which is West Coast, West Coast, as Francisca indicated, the rainfall, he said it will be above normal. So
yes,
it means normal. That he will have very good rains. He's assured of some very good rains for his maize crop. So depending on the type of maize productivity he wants to go into, is it for yield or is for maybe for nutrition? Because we have maize seed that has been developed, which are biofortified, and people grow it for purposes of nutrition. They used to feed children and all that. And then if it is for yield, then there are also seeds. So I'm hesitant in mentioning varieties, but what I can inform him is that once he has this information, he can talk to the nearest agric extension officer, who I think should be able to recommend the type of seed, because we have several of them that have been released. We have over 35 maize varieties released by both CRI and SARI, Savannah Agricultural Research Institute. So once he has this information, he is in a good position to make a choice depending on the information is given by the Agric Extension Officer. Otherwise, if he wants to deal with me personally, he can always contact me. I can share with him a bullet or fact sheets of the different varieties that are available, that seeds available, and then help him choose one of them.
Okay. I think this is a suggestion from Shine Akakpo to Mrs. Martey. She said, very informative. Kindly liaise with Agric Extension agents to bring down this information to the local farmers. Mrs. Martey. I hope there is that collaboration between GNet and then Agric Extension officers.
And that is what I said as the AEAs, the intermediaries.
Okay.
So, but
and this time,
can I speak to this?
Yes.
Yes, you can add up after Mrs. Martey is done.
Okay, so and then now, for GMET, we are now going to not only the AICCRA intervention sites, but we are going to other places too, and we are liaising with them. So they are in. We are partnering the different classes of people. Okay. The AEAs are the most. I don't want to say most relevant, but they also take it to the people for us. So we work with them hand in hand.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Dr. Yeboah can add his.
Yes, please, Dr. Yeboah.
Yeah. So in fact, my view to this is that this should be a national agenda. It should not be a project based. For example, AICCRA and Ghanaian farmer and other interested groups are the one facilitating this process at this stage. But it should be a national agenda, because this is an information that is required for making farm decisions. So when now Francisca is only talking about public sector extension officers, but now we have a lot of private sector and community-based extension agents who are not in the public system, who are also working with farmers and farmer groups in different Ghanaian communities. So how do this information reach all these people? So the approach will not be to use a project base, which is a very good intervention, part of which is what we are doing here. But it should be a national agenda, facilitated by different government agencies responsible for disseminating this information. One of them, GMET, who has developed a product. But this should be taken up by the nation, because if this information that we are sharing today, assuming we have 40 minutes on GTV to demonstrate this,
Exactly, exactly.
You can imagine the impact it will have.
Right.
We have 30 minutes on any of these, our famous radio stations, national radio stations, to talk about this for 40 minutes. You can imagine this conversation, the impact it will have. So that is the elevation I want to see this, not just project-based and small locality-based approaches.
Okay. Mrs. Martey, there's a question here. The person is asking if he can have access to last year's forecast.
Oh, I don't think that should be a problem.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a problem. By the time we finish, the person can get in touch. I don't know how. But anyway, the person can get in touch. We can find ways of the person getting it.
Okay. All right. Shine comes back with another comment. She says that the information does not cut across the entire country. So more needs to be done. Shine, I think that's what Doctor just said. Dr. Yeboah is asking all hands on board so that it can get to every corner of the country. Everywhere we grow food, let's all get on board and support GMET to make this possible. There's another question here I have for both of you, Mrs. Martey. How can you encourage the use or not just access, the use and not just access to CIS or CSA?
How can we encourage the use?
Yes. How do you encourage the use and not just access to CIS
the
or
use as in US or use? Youth.
Use,
USE.
yes, the use of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So for example, we have created platforms.
Yes.
We have people on it, but people don't even check until they see the clouds gathering. You see? So the encouragement is that you should make it a daily routine thing. You see, if we go to countries where the weather is cold, every morning we wake up, we look out for the weather. Or in the rainy season, we look out for the weather and find out how are we going to go by our routes. It's the same thing we should do.
Okay.
And not just that we have it, access to it, and we keep it and we don't use it. We should look out for it. We should, if in the evening when we are going to sleep, maybe that should be the last thing to look at to see how the next one is going to be. And then we wake up in the morning, we can look at it first thing and use it to plan our day, both the short term and the long term. For the farmers, yes, they should just not ignore it and go and apply fertilizers or their weedicide, but they should look at it and find out what is the weather people saying? What are they saying that, how are we going to apply it? And so when they do it, it will be informative enough. I will encourage them to continuously look out for it. Because the access is now there. And then share the good news to other people.
So I think Mrs. Martey, someone said you should encourage people to listen to the song everywhere you go. So you take the weather with you. And then another question from Solomon Mensah. It says, Mrs. Martey, does GMET provide location-specific weather data? If yes, what is the range?
Location-specific?
Yes, please. Weather data. So, and if yes, what is the range?
For now, this is what we are bringing on board. It is not as interactive as we are doing, but we are still working for the location specific, which is coming on board. So soon it will be there. And when we come, we'll share there.
And then from Abdullah, we have just 5 minutes to go. Abdullah is asking, how soon are you going to publish the data on the northern zone?
So as I said, we have started working on the forecast. And so as I began saying it, we work as a zone. We don't just work in our corner.
Okay.
So after we can do ours, but we also have to agree as a West African team. Then we come out. And so if we are late, first week in May to second week in May should be out.
Okay, right. So your final word before I go to Dr. Yeboah to wrap up, then I will bring Reginald in. Mrs. Martey, what's your aspiration for climate smart in Ghana in the next 5-10 years? What's your aspiration?
Oh, in the next 5-10 years, we are expecting to cover the whole of Ghana.
Okay.
We're expecting to get an interactive spatial plots for people to get their specific locations that they want. We're expecting to possibly get an app for Ghana to work with.
Okay.
So that you carry that with you. And then we're expecting that much as we cover the whole country, people will be knowledgeable in the weather and its applications.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. So please, we have dropped a link to GMET's WhatsApp page. If you're online, please just tap on it and you'll be connected so that you can actually have access to that. And people are still bringing questions, but our time is up. Someone is asking of when you're going to drop the data also for Volta region, OT and others. But I'm sure that, like she said, they are working in step by step. So your time would come and you see what will happen at your corner, and then you know how to work around it. Dr. Yeboah, we're calling it a night. It's been very insightful. I'm sure that if we had more time, more questions would come for you. But what would you say from the angle of crop? What would you tell our farmers, please?
Yeah, so thank you for organizing this, and this is a very important initiative. What I would say is that now I'll tell everybody the foremost information you need to decide on your farming practices is weather. So we should take this current forecast 2024 seriously, and then based on that decide on the. What is good is that we have all the interventions that are there to help mitigate all the climate risk that the forecast can bring. So in terms of crop research, we have developed a lot of technologies in terms of type of seed that you can use and type of agronomic practice, the corresponding agronomic practices. So now that we have the information, let's apply the information. So for me, into the future, I want to see a country where our resilience is increased through capacitation, where many people are not knowledgeable, as Francisca said. Their capacity is strengthened to both assess and understand and interpret the climate information and be able to use it. That requires a lot of capacity strengthening, and then be able to deploy all the associated climate smart agriculture practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reginald, somebody is asking you should share the link again. And Reginald, I also have a question from Dr. Yao Kamasa, one of the biggest potato farmer and exporter. He's asking, is it possible AICCRA in partnership with your GMET and CSIR, can you organize a physical conference, quick, to get people? The physical one is the online one. Is it possible, please? That's a question to you, Reginald. But on this note, please, I'll bring Reginald in to summarize this whole discussion for us, and then we'll call it an evening. Reggie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, please.
I would like to say thank everyone for joining. I understand the difficulty given the current challenge we have with the internet service in Ghana. So thank you very much. And to respond to the last question, I think we've been doing that for the past 3 years. Probably, why is the farmer? Is he? Which region is he?
He's in the Volta region, but he's asking if we could organize this, being it wherever it is, because the farmers will need to engage Mrs. Martey and Dr. Yeboah.
Yeah, Mrs. Martey has been doing that for a while. So probably this year,
right.
Yeah, we will to see how we can expand it beyond AICCRA intervention areas.
Okay.
So thank you very much for.
And then
for
again, before you come in, he can also organize his people, the family group. He can organize because that's our next one we are coming to. And then let us know. Then GMET will be there. We'll bring crop research if they're a bit free there. Because we're actually looking for the people along that side towards the OT region. So he should just gather his people and then let us away and be aware and then let us know. Then we'll come on.
All right, ma'am.
So if you've noticed, I have shared the screen, and on the left of the screen, you see access the seasonal forecast. So I went to GMET's website and I downloaded it. So if you have your phone, you just open your camera and you show it, you were able to download it onto your phone.
Okay.
If you want to do that. I've also shared the WhatsApp page of GMET where I think you have farmers, extension officers, radio stations and stuff. So you can click on it and join if you want the daily forecast and also the seasonal forecast and daily update from GMET. We've gone past our time, but I think 15 minutes. Had a very great session, a very high turnout. Thank you very, very much for joining. High turnout. Thank you for joining. Hopefully we can do this again another time, or probably we'll meet physically.
But before we go on, we are doing this because on every 23rd March, it is a World Meteorological Day. And because this is going towards a Saturday, World Meteorological Organization decided we should do our work today. And so that is why you are seeing this. And I can see some of my colleagues online. Thank you for the support. And I know you are working hard. We are all working hard to bring this.
So how are we marking the day, Mrs. Martey? How are we marking the day?
The day, today we marked it. We brought school children into our place. We are now building climate awareness in schools. And so we are able to get, I think, about 6 schools. We brought them to our yard. And then they displayed what they know already, trying to introduce the young people to climate and climate issues. So that by the time they grow, they understand what we are talking about. And so that is how we spent the day. And then we are closing it with this one. And so this is also part of taking climate issues and then its applications to the public. This is also, I'm just happy for those who have joined us and then are learning. When people get to understand climate and its application, like the crops, the health, disaster risk, and other applications, it gives us joy. So thank you, Reginald and team, Enyonam, and all those who organize this thing. Let's get more of this, and then we can say that we know that people use it. And the next 5 to 10 years, we'll all come together, and then we'll know that we have promoted weather and safety in our country.
Right. Reginald, are you done, please?
Yes, I'm done. That's it. Thanks.
Sorry,
Thanks, thanks, everyone. No, it's
all right.
fine.
So thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. It's been very, very insightful. My name once more is Enyonam Manye. I'm the host of the Ghanaian Farmer on Joy Prime, and I'm all over on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere, the Ghanaian Farmer. But Dr. Yeboah and Mrs. Martey, anytime you want a one-on-one media engagement, it would be more good if we can do it on the field. Just let me know and I'll follow up so we can have this discussion and help a lot of the farmers who will be going into the season this year. But on that note, please have a good evening and have a great rest. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who is saying thank you. Kofi Otu, Kofi Hinako, everybody who is saying thank you so much. But please subscribe to GMET's social media platform. All the information is out there. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.